Hello and welcome back to zebracode.io. This is a free coding curriculum, and I encourage you to visit this website where we lay out the entire course. This is lesson 5, and we'll be focusing on iteration. And iteration is the idea that you're going to be doing something over and over again. We're going to have a for loop or a while loop, and these are things we can do. For loops have a specific number that you're going to do something over and over again, and a while loop does something while some condition is true. Now, when we're working through this code, make sure you type all the code, you execute the code, you change the code, and you predict the code, because the only way you're going to learn how to code is to be actively involved. Now, this is a simple for statement, and you should type this out in your environment, and it is for x in range 0 to 10, and it has a colon at the end, and then we have the idea of a code block, and then we're going to print x. So in this case, we're going to iterate through something, and we're going to increment the number starting at 0, and we're going to get all the way up to, but not including 10. So this is going to go through 10 times, and it's going to print x, and x is going to start off by being 0, and then 1, 2, and all the way up to 9, but not including 10. So it's going to be an integer, and it's going to increment up from 0 all the way almost up to 10, or up to 9 essentially in this case. Now you should type this code and actually execute it and run. Now here's another example. Here we have another for loop. We're going to initialize a variable sum. It's an integer. It's equal to 0. Now for item, you don't have to use x. Last time I used x, but whatever variable you're going to use here, you have to be consistent. So I'm going to use for item in range 0 to 5. It's going to go from 0 all the way up to 4. I'm going to print the item. That's going to be a number starting with 0, and it's going to go all the way up to 4, and then I can increment. I'm going to start with sum. Sum is equivalent to sum plus the item. So each time it goes to the loop, item is going to start off by being 0, then 1, then 2, and all the way up to 4. It's going to do this 5 times, and then I can have the total value and print sum at the very end. Now that's outside of the loop. So this code block has 2 lines here, print and sum, and otherwise, once you exit the code loop, then you're outside of the for loop. So essentially, this idea of a code block is indentation is important, and indentation in Python is 4 spaces. Next, let's look at a while loop, and a basic while loop has this construct here. We start with a variable count is equivalent to 0, and now we're going to have the while loop. While count is less than 10, and we have the semicolon here. And now we have the code block, and this code block has 2 statements. It prints the count, and then it increments the count. Now you have to increment the count, or you have to somehow change the conditional value that's right before the colon. Otherwise, you're going to have an infinite loop, and it'll go on forever. Computers definitely do not like that. So we need to change the count so that at some point we have some change in count value so that the while loop results in a false statement, and then we can exit the loop. Again, we have this idea of a code block. Let's look at another example of a while loop that increments or calculates a sum. So in this case, we're going to initialize 2 variables. Sum, comma, count is equal to or equivalent to 0, comma 0. So this means sum is associated with the first number on the right here, and count is associated with the second number on the right. So we're basically initializing 2 variables in one line here. Now we have our while statement. While count is less than 10, we have the colon, and this code block represents these 3 statements here. So all of these 3 statements are associated with the while loop. So inside the while loop, we're going to be doing while count is less than 10, we're going to print the count, we're going to increment the count, and then we're going to calculate the sum. Sum is equivalent to sum plus count. So each time it goes to the loop, count is going to be getting bigger, and sum is going to be getting bigger as well, because it's going to hold the value. Now at the very end, we print the sum. Now, look at the following code and make a prediction on what you think the code will result in. This is important. As you're working with this code, make sure you type it out, make sure you play with it, you execute it, you change it, and you predict. So here we have 2 variables, num and fac, and we're initializing them to 5 and 0 equivalently. We're using a for loop. For x in range, we're going to go from 1 to the num plus 1. Okay? In this case, we're going to take fact, that's a variable, is equivalent to fac times x, and then we're going to print fac. And notice the print fac is within the loop, so it's each time we're going through the loop, we're going to be printing the fac. So go ahead and type this out, study it, estimate what you think the result will be, and what do you think this program is calculating? You can make your own prediction, calculate the results, type it out, execute the program, and see if you're right. Now, go ahead and look at the demos. We have 2 demos, a demo that's focused on the for loops and a demo that's focused on the while loops, and then go ahead and work on the homework problems. Thank you. This is zebracode.io.